this idea that it's spreading out to other sectors. That would be the nightmare scenario.
You're not going to believe this. Welcome back to Moose and Loose. My name's David. Today we have Mark Carney getting absolutely slaughtered on CTV. We have almost every panelist calling him out. And I'll mix in two different panels here. We've got a couple of economists and then the typical panel of pundits who are going after him for these horrible job numbers. Let's jump into this. So jumping into the meat and potatoes here, just a little recap on the situation, and we jump into this panel.
Prime Minister Mark Carney today defending his economic record as he faced questions about the latest labor market report. New data from Statistics Canada shows job numbers last month were well below expectations of many economists. Here are those numbers. The StatsCan report says Canada lost 84,000 jobs in February. That is the biggest drop in 4 years. The total number of people who were working full-time last month dropped by 108,000. Now, 73,000 of those jobs were in the private sector. Add all that together, and Canada's unemployment rate ticked up to 6.7%. So
you notice there they showed 6.5 in January and 6.7. This is what Carney was alluding to. He's like, oh, it wasn't as bad as before, like crutching onto this as if this is great.
The report comes less than a week before the Bank of Canada's next interest rate decision, and that's coming on March 18th. Now, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre also spoke about today's job numbers report. He was in Windsor this morning, the first stop on his 5-day trip that will include the United States.
Today, we got the terrible news that 84,000 Canadians lost their jobs last month. A devastating jobs report, the result of in part of Mark Carney's Liberal failures and continued job-killing Liberal policies.
We did request an interview with the Jobs Minister or her parliamentary secretary, and the government declined both invitations to answer questions about this report. But we do have...
Of course, they're going to decline that. They don't want to be accountable for their disastrous record. Now, before we jump into the panel here, let's just break this down a bit. So Table Salt posted this graph here. As he mentioned, 108,000 full-time jobs lost. And as he also mentioned, 72,000, which you can see here, it's a little bit cut off, is private sector jobs. 108,000 total lost full-time jobs. 72,600 of those are private sector jobs. Only 17,000 public sector. Essentially, these are the best kind of jobs that are being lost in Canada. It's these kind of jobs that we're seeing here. Wow, look at this chart is simply unreal. Has Canada already joined the European Union, or did it decide to successfully deindustrialize on its own? Look at this separation from America to Canada. This is in regards to investment in industrial machinery and equipment volumes. Canada falling off the map here. Now, don't worry, Mark Carney's investments are perfectly protected here in the United States. He will ride out this storm just fine. As we saw from that press conference, all he had to say on this was a bunch of mumbling and bumbling.
There's no question, though, because it goes to the first part of your question. Now I'll move to that, which is that given the scale of the trade actions, the uncertainty that is associated as well as with the trade actions by the United States, that is causing big adjustments in the Canadian economy.
So there he is blaming it on Donald Trump because, well, he doesn't take accountability for anything that he does. So we're going to skip over this Liberal pundit because all she says is, well, it's okay. Is that not that bad?
I think it's also important to look at that larger picture of the economy and see where the economy is going.
Oh, that's right. Let's just look at the larger picture because we don't want to look at these specific numbers of job losses. Typical Liberal pundit here trying to deflect.
I think the bigger thing for Mark Carney and the team is to watch for what happens with the Middle East and the war there and how that affects inflation and affordability, because I think that's going to be a much more bigger problem for consumers.
Mel, I take Sabrina's point about how, hey, we're doing better than others, but that excuse doesn't often wash with Canadians, right?
Yeah, and we aren't actually doing better than others. In fact, Mark Carney has been saying that on the trade deals, like on tariffs, we're doing better than others, that our deal, although it's worse than it used to be, is better than what some others are facing. And yet, why is it then that we now have the second highest unemployment rate in the G7, second only to France? How is it that we're doing, better than others, but we are the worst somehow at the same time? We're worse off than we were. And Sabrina's right to point out that compounding all of this is the worsening of the affordability crisis. Have you filled up on gas this week? The average price of gas is $1.55. in Canada right now, and the analysts are saying it's going to go up from there. I think it's $1.60 in Toronto. It's $1.70 in Montreal. I tried to do some research before the show.
Thank goodness we got Melanie on here, the voice of reason. We are becoming dead last in everything, and we have everything. We have all the critical minerals, the oil and gas. We can produce food. We have water. We have trees. We have oil. We have everything. Seafood. What don't we have? There's very few things we don't have. We've got uranium, high-grade uranium for nuclear reactors, and yet we're failing miserably because we have net zero policies. As she mentioned there, price of gas. I wish it was $1.50, $1.60. It's $1.90 where I live. It's going to hit $2 very soon, and normally it hits $2 in the middle of summer when they like to jack up the prices to take advantage of road trippers. It should not be $1.90 in March.
Analysts are saying it's going to hit $2 a liter, which is, I think, the highest ever. That's higher than what prices were after Russia invaded Ukraine. And the consequences of that are, even if this only goes on for a few more weeks, because of this season that we're in right now, the consequences will be much longer term. Crops are going into the ground across North America right now. That's very fuel intensive. That's going to add costs to food to groceries. Shipping groceries to the store is very fuel intensive. So we're going to see those prices probably go up as well.
It's any transport of goods. You can expect that cost to be added on to the cost of Amazon products or anything that gets shipped around. And she said $2 as the average price. Well, she quoted, was it $1.50, $1.60? And I said $1.90 where I'm at right now. That would mean that my gas prices would be up to $2.30, $2.40 if the average price is at $2. This is going to be devastating for Canadians. People can already not afford to eat. We can't be going to the grocery store and a bag of carrots that used to cost $1. Now it's like $3. It's going to go up to $6, $7 for a bag of carrots. Green peas used to be $1 for a frozen bag of green peas. Now I was shocked, and I shot a short and I forgot to upload it. It was like $3.35 for a bag of green peas. It's over triple the price. And Carney's going to go, oh, well, it's not the industrial carbon tax. Trust us. We did a study. We paid for a study for them to tell us that the industrial carbon tax doesn't affect the prices whatsoever. Canadians have to learn that the government lies to them. The Liberals are chronic liars.
The flights are going up. And so families now who are thinking about taking that summer vacation are going to maybe not do that. So you're going to continue to feel this affordability challenge for months to come, even if this only lasts for a few weeks, like Donald Trump is saying. And all of that erodes Mark Carney's brand because his brand is tied to the economy.
The only brand Carney has is Brookfield. He's the Brookfield party that's only in it to boost the value of Brookfield in his own shares. I don't know what Liberals see in this guy because he's a banker. He worked at Goldman Sachs. Not exactly the best reputation over there.
How do we see that blowback, or will we, Carl? Will there be any political really ramifications for the Prime Minister here?
How long it lasts, because frankly, the brand is strong enough right now to sustain these kind of numbers, but not in the long run. The problem with Mark Carney is that all politics are local, and you can blame Donald Trump for his adventures in the Middle East and the price of gas. But when food goes up, when price of everything goes up because of it, people are going to look at the guy who said he would deliver answers to them, that he would fight back, that he would, diversify trade. And all these things are not happening quickly. And that's where the problem lies. If Mark Carney is not able to deliver good results, good numbers, sustain growth, jobs, reduce the inflation, people are going to say, well, he did not deliver. That's what we elected him to do. And he's not delivering. That's the key for him. He's got to turn those numbers around.
He's not going to turn those numbers around. And what's going to happen here is if Mark Carney gets his majority government, which it looks like he's got now, come the middle of April, and then price of food keeps going up and things get worse and worse and worse, and he has this unelected majority government just from bribing people with tax dollars into their ridings, like we see in Nunavut, billions of dollars given to Nunavut just to get lorried across the floor, you're going to see Canadians who can't afford to eat get desperate and angry and ravenous. We saw this with Justin Trudeau back in, 2022, where anytime he stepped out of his vehicle, he had 30 different RCMP security guards around him protecting him because people were so ravenous and angry at Justin Trudeau for destroying our country. All of that frustration is just going to get transferred right onto Mark Carney, and there's not a place he'll be able to poke his head out without having ravenous, angry Canadians, almost a level of barbarianism, and it'll be justified. In that state, though, he's not going to be safe anywhere he goes. At least he won't feel safe when people are yelling F-bombs at him and throwing rocks at him and all that stuff we saw happen to Trudeau back in 2022. Carney's got a little bit of leeway here because he came in after Trudeau's mess and people are like, oh, he's different. This isn't going to last long. It's clear Carney's motives are much more evil than Justin Trudeau's. Trudeau was just playing out Carney's plan from the background. Carney's been running this Brookfield grift for years now through Justin Trudeau. Perhaps we should look at what Justin Trudeau and Tim Hodgson, all these guys are invested in. It's all the same thing. It all points back to the same company that Carney's boosting. Jumping over to this panel, they bring on a couple of economists. A bit of a different take here. Guy on the left absolutely hammering Mark Carney here.
Jimmy, I want to start with you on this. These losses are full-time jobs, and they're also in the private sector. How concerning is that to you?
Well, certainly not the kind of report we like to see. Indeed, as you mentioned, pretty heavy losses in full-time positions. And, in terms of magnitude, you really have to go back to the recession of 08-09 to find similar declines outside, of course, of the pandemic disruptions, which were a very different context. And when you really look into the breakdowns by sector, the fact that, as you mentioned, a lot of it is in the private sector. It's really the type of report. It's an ugly report. There's no other way to see it. But at the same time, I think there are suspicious elements in the data, particularly the fact that most of the weakness comes from one city, and that city is Montreal. And we don't have much evidence to really corroborate why 57,000 of those jobs lost were in Montreal.
It's interesting, Avery, because there is that sort of an anomaly in the data, but also the sectors that took the biggest hits were goods and services producing industries. What does that mean for our economy when you consider how much we do rely on those industries for so much?
Well, it's just about everything, actually, in the private sector. I think Jimmy is right that you don't want to necessarily take one number literally. Remember, this is a poll of a sample of Canadians from 1 month to the next, and the sample changes over time. To me, what's most meaningful here is that this is a trend. So it's not just 1 week number that may have been exaggerated the downside, but if you just look back at what's happened to the unemployment rate, for example, we're sitting at 6.7. We've been bouncing around levels like that for a while, and that's a weak labor market. That's a labor market that has more people unemployed than we would want to see. It's quite a ways away from what we would consider full employment for Canada. So whether you buy into this one number or the particular sectoral breakdown in this particular poll, it is another message among many messages we've had that the Canadian economy isn't where we would like it to be.
That's a great point. It's not just one number. It is a trend of weakness across our entire economy. Canada sheds more than 100,000 jobs in the first 3 months of the year. Congrats, Carney. Meanwhile, what are they focusing on? Net zero. Of course they are.
They have no view about how to build an economy of the future. Oil and gas will peak this decade. In fact, oil is probably peaking this year. And the economic plan of the Conservative Party of Canada is simply to produce more oil and gas into a market that inevitably, if we are going to fight climate change, will begin to decline.
Why are we fighting this invisible thing that doesn't exist? China keeps opening up more coal-fired power plants than we could ever mitigate with us converting our entire economy to this eco-green agenda. These guys don't ever want to address that. If we really wanted to fight this, in their words, then we should be setting up so many LNG terminals and shipping so much of that over to India and China and displacing their coal. They know this. It's just a grift that they're making money off of.
That is a ridiculous economic plan for the future of this country. It will leave Canada uncompetitive and poorer on a go-forward basis. So
they have no proof of this competitive advantage. Produce some results. Show us the countries that demand to have green, clean oil, low carbon oil. There's no proof of that. China doesn't care if our oil's low carbon. Neither does India. Neither does Taiwan, all demanding our oil.
For all of those reasons, I am very happy to be engaging this debate, but I would encourage Mr. Poilievre and the folks that sit on the Conservative benches to at least try to tell the truth.
Yeah, he can take his own advice. Produce some real facts and data that low carbon oil or low carbon anything gives us a competitive advantage. It doesn't, and they don't have proof. Thus, that's why they've never shown it, they've never used it, they've never cited it, because there is none. Meanwhile, what do we have in Canada? Income tax rates. Canada, number 1. No wonder things are so bad here. Food costs so much. Everything is so hard. We're taxed out the wazoo here. Carney could slash taxes in half, and immediately it would have an effect on society. Things would be so much better. Just make it so the first $70,000 of income tax tax is tax-free. And after that, it's a flat tax rate of 15%. Do you think that would boost the economy? Sure, they wouldn't be getting as much money, but that's the problem. They need that money for the net zero agenda. Meanwhile, we have 1 in 5 Canadians over 50 living at poverty level standards of living. And what does Carney do? He announces $100,000 for Indian students to have university grants in Canada, as if that should ever be a priority in our country.
4 times as many Indians study in Canada as in the UK, twice as many as in the US. Okay, absolute numbers. Yeah, we have a lot of people coming to Canada to study. In fact, and not surprisingly, on most metrics, we have the most educated population in the world, including post-secondary and beyond. So that attractiveness is big, and one of the things, we only have so much capacity for that. So one of the things we need to do, and are beginning to do, is have satellite campuses, better virtual and other forms of hybrid connectivity, if I can put it that way.
Really goes to show where Carney's priorities are, giving grants to Indian students while Canadians are eating from food banks.
Yeah, and the steward of that, Jimmy, is the Prime Minister. Today, Mark Carney was asked about this, and he compared our job numbers to the U.S., saying that Canada is creating jobs at a faster rate. He says that Canada created 80,000 jobs over the last 6 months, while the U.S. created 6,000 over that same period. Do you think there's some validity in that?
To a limited extent. I mean, let's be real. As Avery mentioned, the Canadian economy is struggling. The fourth quarter performance, we had a contraction in fourth quarter. No other country in the G7 experienced that. And even, looking at the job numbers, yes, we did create some jobs, but in the sectors that are targeted by tariffs, you had some weakness. And now the concern, indeed, in the message we're getting today, is this idea that it's spreading out to other sectors. That would be the nightmare scenario. So we still need to get more information, more data to see whether that is confirmed, including in some of the other surveys. We have information coming out of businesses through other surveys that tend to give a more precise picture. So we'll be using those to corroborate whether this is what's happening. But I don't think it's a time when we want to be sugarcoating things when we see a report with such weakness and widely distributed.
There we go. So we're finally getting some people on here who are telling it as it is, because these economists are not going to, as he said, sugarcoat it. That directly attacks their reputation. And there's nothing they can do about this. So what are they going to not bring on anyone? Things are just so bad that Carney's going to have to eat this. And as he mentioned, he said it earlier, an ugly report as well as nightmare scenario. These are describing the situation Mark Carney has created in our country. Now, jumping back to this report here, would you believe it? CTV Rachel Aiello brings up Carney's vacation as well.
And Rachel, it's interesting because a bit of a double-edged sword that the House isn't sitting next week. One, that he won't have to answer to some of those questions from the opposition parties, but more than likely he won't have any messaging to sort of counter what's happening in the pocketbook issues.
Yeah, well, certainly not, especially if he's taking that personal time for the remainder of the week in Europe. Right. But I think to all of the points that the panelists were making, what really strikes me is how lacking the Prime Minister's response was when he was asked about this by reporters today. He took the defensive approach of saying, I've actually created more jobs. Unemployment is better now than it was when I took over, which to me...
That's the typical Justin Trudeau response. Just better off now than it was. Completely deflect, not taking responsibility. It's the arrogant rich surfer snowboarder approach to Justin Trudeau. Carney's doing the same thing. Those guys are very similar despite their experience, their demeanor, and their approach. Their smugness and arrogance is on the same level.
Was kind of like Trudeau era messaging, right back to your point of, compared to our G7, et cetera, fill in the talking point. And I don't think that's resonating with Canadians. It's cold comfort to the daily live experience that they are facing as a result of these numbers and the overall state of the economy. So I think that, he should probably take the week before Parliament comes back to think about how he's going to better tailor the message, maybe try to explain it in some of the way that Sabrina did of making clear where he is making gains, making it clear to Canadians that it could take a longer time for some of these jobs to materialize, but not dismissing or playing down the areas where there are job losses and trying to bring back his election campaign strategy of we're going to protect jobs. That wasn't really in the sentiment of what he offered today.
Carney is not going to protect jobs. And really, he kind of screwed himself over because he said, judge me on the price of food. And now it's gotten so out of hand. It can be used so easily by any of the parties, especially the Conservatives, the NDP, the Bloc. Any of them can say, judge me on the price of food. Carney said it. The question is now, as things get worse and Carney starts getting heckled beyond belief like Trudeau did, and he continues to dish out contract after contract going to Brookfield, and people realize realize that he's just funding Brookfield and screwing over Canadians, he locks in a majority government. How bad is this going to get for Mark Carney? Will he be able to show his face in public without having rocks or tomatoes or whatever thrown at him? Will he just forego going to the House of Commons to not be scrutinized? How bad is this going to get?